Hi there guys, and welcome to another episode of the Cover Zero show with me, your host Simon Conboy. Continuing on with the season preview series today, we will be focusing on the Denver Broncos. Now, for those of you who haven't seen one of these episodes before, what I'll be doing is going through my projected starters on both sides of the ball. Of course, we do have some degree of time until pre-season training camps begin. So if the team was to play tomorrow, this is how I think they would look, even though, of course, this may not end up being the case at all. I'll then be going through the schedule sort of very briefly and giving my projected record for the upcoming season, some of my thoughts as to why I think that may be the case. And then to finish up, my 3 X factors if this team is going to overachieve or potentially collapse this season. It will be because of these factors being, I believe they're the most significant and possibly most difficult to determine at this point in time. So we'll hop right in with the offensive starters. At quarterback, I think Trevor Siemian gets the nod. He looked good enough to me last year, and I just think Elway will have a say in this, especially with a new coaching staff. And I think Vance Joseph will probably agree this defense is still capable of competing with the powerhouse teams in this league. The offense doesn't necessarily have to be dominant, and I think Siemian showed enough last year to think he is the safer bet. Whilst of course he doesn't have the upside of Paxton Lynch, I think he's got a far more reasonable floor. Lynch didn't look great in action last year, other than the game against the Buccaneers, where the Buccaneers couldn't get any pass rush, which is shocking considering how poor that line was at times last year. So I think that just because this team's window is open, I think Siemian gets the job unless Lynch really does shine in camp. Of course, this is probably the hardest training camp quarterback battle to call. It certainly could go either way, but I would give the edge to Siemian. I thought he was pretty impressive at times last season. Running back, call me a bit of a fanboy for this player, but Jamal Charles has been a great borderline Hall of Fame player in his career. For me, he absolutely is a Hall of Famer type talent, and I just can't see him not getting the job ahead of the other guys in that locker room. If he doesn't, then it really does show that these injuries have sapped him of a lot of his ability. I suspect he ends up getting the start. We know what a great weapon he is. If he's even 80% of the Jamal Charles we saw in Kansas City, he's the best option they've got. Fantastic receiving weapon. I think he's kind of, Jamal Charles is the kind of prototype for some of these guys we've got now, like David Johnson, Le'Veon Bell. Jamal Charles was doing this before them. I think he's follows on that Brian Westbrook type mold of running back. And I think Devontae Booker, again, I think he's just got a bit more talent than the guys behind him. CJ Anderson will probably see some snaps as well, but I think Booker probably ends up being the number 2. And we'll see Anderson getting some goal line carries. We'll probably see a rotation, to be honest, unless Charles is very much healthy and where he was in the past. At receiver, one of the best 1-2 punches in the league in Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders. Thomas, of course, physical specimen, good deep threat. Sanders, very good route runner, very reliable possession receiver. He's kind of like a better version of Pierre Garçon in a lot of ways. Both very, very good players. I think the third spot is wide open. The rest of the depth chart far less solid. I think Cody Latimer ends up getting it. Could very much be wrong on that one, but that's just how I feel at this point in time. That could change tomorrow, to be honest. None of the other names really jump out at me. At tight end, Virgil Green, I suspect, will be the starting receiving tight end, and Jeff Hoyerman as the blocker. Considering how this offensive line has struggled, I wouldn't be even remotely surprised to see a lot of 2 tight end sets. And you got to help those tackles out. And Virgil Green, didn't see him used a lot last year, but I think he's got a lot. He's certainly got the ability to be a decent option as a receiver. Not sure if he's going to set the world alight, but I certainly feel he can be a contributor. At offensive tackle, Garrett Bowles, I suspect, starts day one as a rookie. The blocking has really been an issue for a while now. I can't see any reason not to just throw him into the fire. And Donald Stevenson at right tackle, who has struggled. I don't think he's a particularly good player, but particularly in pass pro. But alas, I don't see anyone better on the roster. Guard, Ronald Leary, I think was a savvy signing from the Cowboys. I don't think he's a great player. I think he benefited, of course, from having some great talent around him. But I do think he's an above average guard. I think he'll certainly help with the run blocking, and he's going to be an upgrade over what they had last year. I think Max Garcia plays opposite him. Again, I think this is a below par player. Pass protection has been an issue. I think that will continue to be the case. And Matt Paradis at centre, who I do think is a good player. He's been the strength of the line for a couple of years. I think with the talent around him, we'll get to see that he's a much better player than many think. And at kicker, Brandon McManus. So he gets that nice advantage of kicking at mile high. Sure, he'll have a lot of opportunities. I'm not sure this team's necessarily going to get a huge amount of touchdowns unless the O-line play improves. Now, this is another one of those. A lot of the teams I've talked about thus far, the problem is just that offensive line. I just can't get excited about a team that has struggled in pass protection and run blocking as much as this team did last year. As I say, I think Simeon played very well considering the circumstances. This team had little to no run game. They couldn't protect for particularly long, and it just affected everything they were trying to do. Whilst I do think that the Ronald Leary signing alone improves them significantly, and Garrett Bowles, it's hard to imagine him not being an upgrade even as a rookie. I still think they're a little bit of a way away from where they need to be. If Jamal Charles isn't healthy at running back, then I'm concerned about that group. And Simeon, whilst I do, I'm a fan, I think he's a good player. I do think he's got some limitations, and he is still a young player. Even if it's Paxton Lynch, that you're basically going with. Whilst he's a second-year player, he's not got a huge amount of experience. So I think there's going to be some struggles on the offensive side of the ball, particularly considering the division this team's in. That's three very good defences that they have to go up against twice. The defensive starters, one of the better groups in the league, no doubt. Defensive end, I've got Derek Wolfe, who's a really underrated player. He's very good. Wasn't quite good enough to crack my top 10 interior rusher list, but he's a good all-round player. Plays the run and pass well. Jared Crick, who not really done too much, but he's certainly got size and physical talent, but he has struggled at the NFL level. And nose tackle, they brought in DeMarco Pico, who's obviously on the downswing, the long-time Bengal, but I think he can still play the run better than what they had last year. He's going to offer no pass rush, but this team really did struggle against the run. This is a signing that I could see helping them. Outside backer, DeMarcus Ware is gone, which is a shame. He's one of the best pass rushers I've ever had the privilege of seeing. However, Von Miller is, for my money, the best pure pass rusher in the NFL right now. And Shane Ray, whilst I was very, anyone who's known me for a while will tell you I did not rate him coming out of college. He's developed well for them. I guess it probably did help to have Von Miller and DeMarcus Ware to learn from. But he has played well as a pro. I think he'll do a good job opposite Von Miller as a starting outside backer this season. Middle linebacker Brandon Marshall is a given. He's been a solid player for them, maybe just above average. Not great against the run, but I think he plays the pass reasonably well, which is important. I think he can be an effective blitzer. And I suspect Todd Davis will be the other backer, but I think this spot's wide open. At corner, the best group in the league, and I don't even think it's close. Aqib Talib has, for the last few years, been one of the absolute top cover corners in the league. He can play man, he can play zone, he's a ball hawk. Absolutely fantastic player. Chris Harris Jr. is also a top end player. It'd be interesting to see him operate without Talib, just to see if he's as good as I think he might be. But it's hard to say based on the tape that he's not as good as advertised. And Bradley Roby, who's turned into a really good nickel corner, and that's a skill in and of itself. It's certainly a tough position to play, and he's done that to a high level. This group is just great. There's no threat to these three guys. They're the starters. Barring injury, these are the guys that we're going to see, and I'm sure they'll continue to do a sterling job. And at safety, we'll see TJ Ward and Darian Stewart once again. TJ Ward, good run player, puts down some hits, maybe not the fastest guy in terms of coverage, but he does benefit from the guys in front of him. And Darian Stewart does a reasonable job back there. I'd need to haven't studied him enough, because he's kind of just like the other guy amidst a very talented backfield, unfortunately for him. But I will have a look there at some point. But he doesn't stand out as bad, so that's something. And at punter, Dixon Riley. Now, this group is fantastic as a pass defense. Of that, I've got no doubt. You've got the best corner trio. You've got pass rushers there in Shane Ray and Von Miller, who, as I say, for my money, is the best pass rusher in the league right now. Derek Wolfe helps out from the interior. There's just so much to like in that regard. Last year, though, we did see them having major issues against the run. And in particular, I remember the Tennessee game where they just could not stop that attack at all. This year, I do think they've made an effort to improve that. I mean, they had no choice. Pico will help. And if that works out, if him and Crick can solidify that aspect of things, this is going to absolutely be one of the top defences in the NFL once again. It'll be interesting to see how things go with Wade Phillips no longer there, but Vance Joseph has done a very good job over the last few years, so I can't imagine the drop-off necessarily being too significant, as good as Wade is. But there's just a lot of talent there, to be honest. I think I could get this defence playing at a high level in regards to the pass game. And that, I mean that as a slight on myself. That's not me being arrogant. That's just how talented these guys are. However, I'm just not too high on this team heading into this season. Last year they went 9-7. I think this year they end up 8-8. I just do not think they've done enough to necessarily get better, whilst I think the teams around them have. The schedule is not too forgiving. The NFC East is a similarly competitive division in my opinion. Whilst I think the pass defense does match up well to those teams, I think they'll struggle to keep up with those offenses. Similarly, I just don't think they match up well with any of the teams within the division. They can all rush the passer. This team has struggled in that regard. It doesn't jump out as too many easy games, and as a result, I think 8-8. I don't think it'd be a disaster for them. Their offense does feel like it's very much in a rebuild since Peyton Manning retired, in spite of having Thomas and Sanders there. I just think against the good defense, I just can't see his team putting up too many points. But there's certainly always going to be a chance if this defence plays up to the level we've become accustomed to. In terms of the three areas, though, that could push this team back into playoffs and possible even Super Bowl contention, this defence is that good. As I mentioned, the run defence, absolutely integral. Last year, it was all well and good having that great pass defence, but the teams that could run did just run on them, and you've got to be able to stop the run first and foremost. You just do. Even in today's pass-happy league, if you can't stop the run, life is hard, and this team is not going to win too many games. The offensive line, it's just got to give them a chance. It's weird looking back to that kind of Broncos and Panthers Super Bowl, because they weren't great lines then, but they've both got worse, and it's a big part of why both of these teams struggled last year. It's hard to imagine it being worse. But they just need to give this group a chance. There's not a huge amount of experience in that backfield beyond Jamal Charles, and there's not a lot of experience at quarterback. Keep guys away from them, and let's give us an opportunity to see what they can do. And the quarterback battle, regardless of who wins, the team simply has to get this right. If they get it wrong, and whoever, whether it's Simeon or Lynch, and they struggle early on, you get those question marks. I think it threatens to sink the whole season. And they're going to have to play to a high level. I think they're going to have to carry this offensive group behind, what I suspect is almost certainly going to be a shaky offensive line once again. And as I've mentioned, they're playing in the AFC West. It's a tough division for quarterbacks to play in. Those defenses, there's some good corners in the division. There's certainly best pass rushing division in the league by a mile. It's not even close. So they're going to have to make sure they get that decision right, and that quarterback gives them a chance in I expect to be the most competitive and difficult division to win this year. So there you have it. That's my outlook on the 2017 Denver Broncos. In spite of saying I think they're going to finish 8-8, I do like this team a lot. I'm a defensive guy at the end of the day, and it's such a great group. It's hard to not put them in playoff contention. I think the division is really strong. If they were in a tougher division, in a weaker division, I could certainly see myself putting them in as a potential division winner or a wild card. But I don't know. I just think they fell a little bit behind the 8 ball compared to some of those teams. I don't think they've necessarily improved enough. But certainly wouldn't be surprised by any of those teams winning that division. So there you have it. Let us know what you think, whether it's the comment section below, the Cover Zero Facebook page. Find me on Twitter at Simon Conboy. Always happy to talk football. Got plenty of other episodes up thus far. Check those out. Going to have all 32 teams covered soon enough. Got 10 episodes already done. So we're getting through this list steadily. And if you've enjoyed it, check them out. Check out Friday's episode. I'll be covering the top 10 corners in the NFL along with my weekly review. Hope to have some news for you guys about some future plans for Friday episodes. So once I've got that news, I will let you guys know. And as always, if you've enjoyed it, like, share, subscribe, check out the Patreon, all that good stuff. It's greatly appreciated. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Have a great evening, and go Bucks.